Hello and welcome to the Jessica Pinelli of podcast, Laura. Thank you so much for coming on. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here, honestly. Like, I've actually followed you for years. And yeah, I think as soon as, like, because I think Threads is such a vibey sort of sister vibe. Like,
Mm.
everyone's so supportive. And as soon as I saw it on there, I was just like, of course I'm going to reach out. Like, this would be amazing. I'd love to just chat with her. And I think, like, what you were saying earlier is organic conversations are so much better than anything that's like being rehearsed or like scripted. And yeah, I just can't wait for this conversation.
I completely agree. And I love that you brought up threads. Like everyone who I have interviewed this year, majority of them, yeah, they came from threads and having conversations. And it's also been so beautiful to expand my own network with people that I was probably never going to find if I wasn't on threads. I feel like it's such a different
Mm.
platform. It's really refreshing. I am loving it. And I'm so glad, like, we could connect deeper on there so you can come on to the podcast. But I really want to start by asking you, what is self worth to you? What is self love to you? How would you define that?
Oh, that's such a big question. Self-love, I guess ultimately and this is something I've been talking about a lot recently. It's not like something that you find. It's not something that you can search for. It's not something that you can chase. It's something that you just be. It's a state of being.
Mm,
And that, like, and obviously self-worth comes in with that as well. But I guess self-love is about being able to be there for yourself and hold yourself, even when things are going wrong, even when things outside of your, control are kind of just not going to plan, and just being able to have grace and compassion for yourself during those times to be able to move through it rather than berating yourself. And self-love to me is something that is, again, it's not a destination. It's
mm,
something that you have to keep choosing. It's a daily commitment to self. Like, I choose to love myself every day. It's not something that I have or I don't have. It's a continuous commitment. And then obviously self-worth comes in with that as well. And I guess self-worth comes down to knowing that you are enough, regardless of other people's opinions, what society holds as like a standard, or like expectations and pressures that we might face as women, and knowing that whatever it is that you decide to do in your life is always enough. And that will help you to feel that sense of worthiness.
For the women that are listening now and they're resonating with that and they're nodding their head in agreement, but they go, I am currently in a state where I don't feel like I have a lot of self worth. I'm currently in a state where I feel like I don't really love myself. Where do I start? Because I feel like I've been doing this work and I can't get to the point where I feel worthy or where I feel like I have a full cup of love.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to that, I think there's a big part of there's so much comparison probably playing out. Like, if I don't feel worthy, then it's probably because I'm comparing myself to other people, because it's like you're not worthy of what, for who, when, like, where is that coming from? And also being aware of how it is that you're speaking to yourself. So just becoming aware of how you're speaking to yourself on a daily basis, and those thoughts that are coming up, those feelings that are coming up, and paying attention to that is like the first step into this. And then kind of looking at what it is in your life that serves you and what doesn't, and removing the things that don't. Also, that could be people, it could be past friendships, it could be the environment that you're in, it could be jobs, it could be anything. But I think when you're in situations or environments or surrounded by people that bring you down or aren't serving you, you will just continue to stay in that realm of not feeling worthy, because you're not being who you want to be in the world. You're being someone who you either think you should be, or you're playing yourself more small because you are comparing yourself to other people, or you're trying to fit in with an expectation that society has conditioned us to believe.
I love that you brought that up. I want to dive deeper into this, into the comparison with other people, but also placing so much value, I guess, on other people's
Mm.
opinions, other people's validation. what's the starting point? If we can recognize, okay, I am comparing myself to my friends, I'm also scrolling on social media daily and I'm comparing to everyone else's wins, or maybe the cars they have, the houses they have, the relationships they have. I can't stop doing it. I'm addicted to it. And I also have this deep fear of not being loved. Where do we
Mm.
begin to unpick this? Where do we begin to even start to figure out why we have this and why we are in these cycles?
Yeah, it can be such a minefield. And I think, again, coming back to just being aware of how you're thinking about yourself. But when you're looking at other people, it's like, what do they have that I don't, that I want? And why is it that I want it? Do I actually even want it? Or does it just look good? Because I think there's a
Mm,
difference. I think we can see so many things online and we're like, I really want to have this. But then if you actually come down to whether you really truly want it, it's not always the answer. And even if you had it, there's going to be something else that you want. And we're always chasing for more. And this comes down to a lot of like marketing and social media because we are just so addicted to our phones and like scrolling, we are constantly like, we need the next best thing. And once we've got that, that isn't enough. So we need the next thing. So it's about coming back to the basics and being grateful for what you have right now and who you are right now and being like, well, actually, if I had those things or if I looked like them, would that be enough? What is enough to me? What does that even mean? And just really diving deep. You have to really go deep into this because it's not surface level stuff. You really have to get in with it, through journaling, through meditation practice, through speaking with a coach or a therapist, and just really like picking your brain apart and seeing what's going on.
Do you think there ever comes a point where we're diving in too deep that it even gets more confusing? And so, where do we kind of stop ourselves? What are the maybe modalities you share with your own clients, you do with yourself, where it's like, okay, I've uncovered all this chunk. Now I'm going to integrate it. I'm actually going to do something with it. Because I think, and
Yeah.
I've definitely been guilty of this, where it's a place where you fall down the rabbit hole and you keep going and going and going. And then you kind of get to the end and it's like, oh, I'm so much more confused and overwhelmed, and I actually don't know where to start. So I'm just not going to start whatsoever.
Yeah, I think and this is where the balance comes in because it's like we almost go from one end of the spectrum to the other. It's like, I am so like lost. I don't believe I'm worthy. I don't feel like I'm good enough. And then we go on this personal development journey and we fall down that rabbit hole and we keep going and we keep going and we keep going. And then there's never an end point. We think that we constantly have to keep searching for being better, for being better, for being better all of the time, when actually it's about taking that first step, right? Today I'm going to do a little bit of journaling on my mindset around this, then implement it.
Mm.
Don't be like, right, well, I've done that, that's fixed. I'm going to go on to the next thing because we're never fixed. Like, this life is always going to throw obstacles at us. So it's like being aware of how you feel emotionally as well. And it's like if you're starting to feel overwhelmed, take a step back, pause. What is it? What do you actually need in this moment? And reflect. I think reflection as well. Like if you've started out in a place where you felt all of those things, not worthy, not good enough, and then you start doing the work, make sure that you're reflecting either daily or weekly on just how far you've come and being aware of that, acknowledging it, celebrating yourself for that. Because if you keep moving on to the next thing, you are never gonna be like you're never gonna acknowledge from where you started. And I think that's where it trips a lot of us up because then we will continue to think that we're not good enough because you've not actually recognized just how far you've come.
I love the self-reflection piece. I think that is so crucial. I don't think it is emphasized enough. I think it's one of those modalities that seems super obvious. And it's like, of course, we should be self-reflecting. Of course, we should be looking at our week and kind of auditing it and learning from it. But a lot of the time, what I found in women who come work with me, I found it with myself as well. And I don't know if you agree with this, but sometimes it's like the most obvious things that are going to help us are normally the things that we don't do.
Yeah, it's always the simple things, and you know why? It's because we take it for granted because it is
Mhm.
obvious. It's like, well, of course I should be doing that, but then we don't actually do the thing.
Mm,
And this is it. And this is what I mean by coming back to basics. It's like, washing, brushing your hair, having a shower. It's like those things that you do physically, we need to do mentally. So,
mm,
like just reflecting, practicing gratitude, and all of these things that seem so simple and so easy, yet we still don't do them. And they take what, like 5 minutes a day
mm.
to do? Like, we can't use the excuse that we don't have the time. It's like, let's make the time, let's make it a non-negotiable, let's make it part of my self-care routine in a day because it is going to serve me.
That's absolutely key. It's what do you value? What is the end result? Like, what are you working towards? And how are you making time for that? And I'll even share one of my experiences. I'm currently in Perth dog sitting for my sister and her partner. And I have been wanting this year to get more steps in because I am sitting at a desk a lot of the time or I'm, doing interviews and things like that. So one of my goals from the past couple of months has been getting in more steps because I used to do it a lot. And I look at my day and I'm like, I just can't fit in the amount that I want to do. So I kind of lowered my goal. And then I got here and I'm taking my sister and her partner's dog on a walk twice a day, long walks, very puppy energy. So she needs to go on long walks. And I look at my steps at the end of the day and I think, wow, I actually do have the time. I actually am making the time now to go out twice a day to get the steps in. Plus, I'm also getting everything done. I'm fitting it into my schedule. I'm not feeling like, oh my God, I'm adding another thing. I can't finish my work or I can't go to the gym or I can't, go see a friend for coffee. I'm fitting everything in. And so I think this is a great reminder of what is actually important to us, how are we actually adjusting our life to make way for those things that are important. But it only really happens when you are having the self-reflection piece.
Yeah. And it's that priority as well. It's like, what are we actually prioritizing in our life? If it's important to me, why am I not prioritizing it? Why am I using time as an excuse, especially when things don't take that long? And I think what's beautiful about what you've just said is you're not only getting the steps in, which is important for you, and it's part of like, your values to look after your health. Actually, there's so much joy and passion that comes with that because you're doing an activity that is joyful by taking the dog for a walk. And actually, when you kind of release the expectation of it being about the steps, you looked at your watch or whatever it is, and you saw the amount of steps that you've done that day, and it's like, I've fulfilled that and taken the dog out twice without me kind of like pressurizing myself to do a certain amount.
And it's so true. And I think it's like I love that you brought that up, bringing more joy into what you're doing as well and creating it in a way that is, something I'm a big advocate for is like, what's the point if it's not fun or what's the point if it's not inspiring? And I think that sometimes when we create new ways of being in our life, it can almost feel like I am adding more. It's like a big thing and it's like this very stagnant energy and I think that we need to then find the ways and even if you try it and you don't like it but you're like this is a value for me, what are you doing to create the inspiration? What are you doing to create the fun and the joy from it?
Yeah, and I would actually say on that, and this is something that I talked about recently. I held a masterclass on values specifically because I feel like it's something that is literally so valuable, but it's not something that we learn at school.
Mm,
So if you're kind of like listening to this and thinking like, well, these are the things that I value. Are they actually the things that you value? Because sometimes we can see
mm.
things, or we value things that we've always valued because we've been brought up to value that thing. But I would actually ask you to take a look at the things that you value as a single individual human, rather than the words that you think, oh, do you know what? That looks like a really good value to have. I'm gonna get on that. Or like a trend, like, oh, authenticity is a bit of a buzzword right now. So that's going to be one of my values. Like, does it actually matter to you? Is it important to you? And I would really sit down and just like reflect on what your values actually are, and then see how you can begin to embody them in your life, not because you think you should be embodying them or valuing that thing. So values is so crucial to living our life in alignment with who we want to be.
Where do we actually start for anyone listening that are like okay, I feel that my values are a bit superficial, or I feel like I've just chosen them because they sound like the right things. What's the process? And I love that you brought this up because this is a conversation I love having as well because it's crucial. It's crucial to our development, it's crucial to our progress to understand what we actually value in life. What are some tips you can give to the listeners about here's a process of really uncovering what is of value to you?
Yeah. So values are the things that are important to you, not what you think should be important. So let's say you have a partner and they value, I don't know, like going to the gym 6 times a week and you think, oh, like because they're doing this thing, then I need to be just as active or whatever, but actually doesn't feel aligned for you. So what I would do is just, and it's really simple, is literally just Google values and come up, and it'll come up with like a huge list of all of the different kinds of values from A to Z. And what I would get you to do is I think the biggest thing here and the biggest key is don't overthink it. So circle every single value or word that jumps out to you, and from there narrow it down to 10, and then down to 5 to the things that you value,
Mm.
not like having someone else in your head saying like, oh, I think that you should be valuing this. No, it's about you. And again, don't overthink it, make it a quick process, because I think the more you overthink it, you'll just want to choose everything. And from there, like choose the 5 and then work out if they're already being prioritized in your life, and if not, why not? And then how you can begin to prioritize them. And the thing about values is don't get caught up in thinking that they're permanent, because whatever life stage you're at, your values are going to change as you learn and you grow and you evolve. So even if you've chosen 5 values for right now, doesn't mean to say they're going to be your values in a year's time. So don't get caught up on thinking, well, once I've chosen them, that's it. Like it's not. But it's going to help you live so much more of a fulfilling life for you that you never actually thought was possible. And this is why values is just incredible.
This is a conversation I actually had tonight on my mastermind call, and I was saying to the ladies that be okay with being completely different in 12 months' time, 6 months' time. Be completely okay if your values have actually shifted. And I think that sometimes, though, and I'm sure you've had conversations with women around this, it can sometimes be confronting
Mm.
when you come to the realization of, wait, I just don't value what I used to. Why don't I? Is this the wrong thing? Especially when it comes to seeing that in your relationships, whether that's romantic or platonic or family, and realizing that values have shifted and they're not aligned with other people's. That's absolutely okay to have people in your life and not have aligned values. It doesn't make it wrong.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's so true. And I think, like you said, I think it actually can be so confronting. Like, it's almost like gut-wrenching feeling of like,
Mm,
why do I not value this anymore? Like, this was so important to me. And actually, I want you to see that as a really beautiful and positive thing, because it means that you've grown so much as a person. And actually, just because you don't value that thing now, it doesn't mean to say that like past you was wrong. It's just like that's what served you in that season of your life. And now you're stepping into like a new season, a new version of you, and you get to make the choices that do feel aligned. And also, when people say like, oh, not everyone's your cup of tea, like not everyone likes everyone, and that's okay, but it can be hard to hear. I
mm,
think sometimes what I like to come back to is it's probably not even about you. It's probably not that they don't like you. It's probably that your values are so broadly different
mm.
that you just don't see eye to eye. So actually, it's not about you as a person. It's just that you value completely different things, and that is okay.
And I think to add on to that as well is knowing that if someone does have different values to you, there's no right or wrong. There just
Yeah.
is. And I think that sometimes people forget that. I know that I've definitely have been guilty of forgetting that it doesn't make someone wrong.
Mm.
And I think we can be quick to label people or to call them out if they're not aligned with what we value and how the lens that we're seeing life. But this is just a reminder to everyone listening, there absolutely the goal is neutrality always. There is no wrong, there is no right, there just is. And it's all with how you us perceiving life and everything that is happening to you. And that's exactly why you have created those values.
Yeah, everything's a perspective, isn't it?
Mm,
And if somebody does value differently to you, like you said, that is okay because everyone has a different model of the world. And sometimes it's really difficult to see that because if you value something so much, you kind of get caught up in thinking, why do they not value the same thing? Like it is
mhm.
so integral and important in my life. I find it weird that somebody else doesn't, but they don't because they're living a different life. But it doesn't make either of you a wrong or right, or like one of you is a bad person, one of you is a good person. It's just like their model of the world and how they see the world, how they perceive things is different to you. But that's amazing because like if everyone valued the same thing, like life would be stagnant. It would be boring. And this is why podcasts are so incredible because the conversations that you have with all of the guests that come on are gonna have different perspectives on life, and that's why it's so important to bring that to like your audience and having, people see things from different angles and different perspectives really helps us to think about things in different ways.
Absolutely. I love when I meet someone or if one of my friends holds different values and different perspectives to me that's completely the opposite. Even though I don't agree with it on a personal front or I can't understand why they value that, I love it because I learn a different perspective about life. I learn a different way that someone is thinking. And I've always found that so interesting of and I love to get curious. And this is for everyone listening as well, is get curious. If you have someone in your life or you have a conversation, in the next couple of months and someone has a complete different value or different perspective on life, instead of judging or instead of shaming or instead of getting defensive, just get curious, ask questions, learn about the different perspective. The goal isn't to have their value by the end of it or to see things their way and to agree with it. The goal is just to, I like to see it as like, I'm just collecting different perspectives about life and about the world and I'm keeping them because they also make great conversation with other people and I can have that input. And I think it's something that also allows us to develop and to grow as a person.
Yeah, it makes life so interesting, and I
Mm,
think having people have different opinion, like it comes down to like having those different opinions, doesn't it? And also like if you was to go to someone for advice, you could go to five different people and they might all say something different. It doesn't make either of any of them right or wrong. And what you get to do is incredible because you can take on all of their opinions and advice and you can utilize it in a way that serves you because ultimately it's your decision. So you can use all of those things, but you don't need to do what any of them have said, but you can look at what they've said to you, use it for yourself, and make the best and informed decision that best serves you. But it doesn't mean to say that you have to do any of what they've said, but having their kind of like opinions is such a good way of just seeing things from different angles and perspectives that helps you then to make that informed decision. Because if everyone kind of like just agreed with you or, told you what you wanted to hear, then that's when we stay in that stagnant energy and stay in that stuck place because we're not growing, we're not evolving because we're just like so like in a bubble of what we want to hear all the time, and that's not fun.
I agree. It's not fun. It becomes boring. It becomes stagnant. And I think there's no room for growth when we
Mhm.
are just surrounding. It doesn't mean to go and just find completely opposite people to you and just sort of put them in your life. But I think like being able to have have the ability to hold space for people who have different values and perspectives and not like cutting them out or not thinking they're a bad person or not thinking, oh, we don't value the same thing, so I need to cut this person out. Even one of my best friends, I've known her now for close to a decade, and there's a couple of things in life we have completely opposite opinions and values, couldn't be further from each other. And what I've learned is it's beautiful to learn her perspective, but it doesn't make me love her any less. It doesn't make me think she's a bad person or she's not a person to have in my life. She has great qualities, and knowing those qualities and also knowing her values and her outlook on life, I think it makes things interesting. It creates a dynamic friendship.
Yeah, for sure. And if anyone is listening and you have a best friend, and I think it goes for the same for the opposite way, it's like just because your best friend values something or they say something's important, it doesn't mean to say that you have to then start believing that too, because that is what friendships are. Like we do have different perspectives and opinions, and that's what makes them strong because we can offer each other something different. You know, if we was both exactly the same, then again it would just end up being stagnant. And I think, yeah, it's beautiful to have those differences of opinions because it really does open your eyes to new possibilities, new
Mm.
opportunities, and just experience in life that we might not have saw that was possible if we was just like thinking the same thing. So yeah, I guess if you've got a best friend, don't think that you're wrong or you're doing, you're getting everything wrong in life or, you're a bad person because you don't value the same thing or you don't have the same opinion. It's not about that. It's about knowing and accepting they're entitled to their own and so are you. And you get to just have this like beautiful blossoming relationship and offer each other different things.
Absolutely. I want to use this as a bit of a segue to ask you about the women's circles that you hold, because I'm sure that you see that. You see the blossoming of friendships, the vulnerability. I can only imagine how fulfilling that is. And I would love to hear how that started for you and why it is something that you love doing and you've created.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It is like literally probably the best thing that I've ever done. And I've never really been like a real confident person. And I remember my first sister circle that I held, I was so nervous. Like I didn't sleep for like a week before. And it was almost like a completely different woman came out of me when I delivered and I held that space. But actually it was truly me. It was who I am, like at my core. And it
Mhm.
just kind of just flew out of me. And from that moment, I've continued to hold them for just over 2 years now, every single month. I get women returning
Wow.
every month. I get new women coming. And some of them, they come and they are so anxious because they've never done anything like it before. And they always end up saying right at the end, like, I have never felt so safe, so accepted, a sense of belonging. I've never been able to open up like I have done. I never thought I would even speak, but I just felt so safe with everyone. Like, and they also share things that they've never told or said out loud in their life. And for me to be able to facilitate that is just like next level amazing that they have so much trust in me to hold that space for them. They're able to share something that has potentially been weighing them down for like 2 decades. And yeah, it is just the most amazing space. You can share whatever it is that's going on in your heart. We reflect, we meditate, we do all of these things that I just really see women blossoming every single time that they come. And the shifts and transformations that have happened, it's like the cheapest form of therapy
Mm.
ever because so much shifts for them in that space. Like it's a 2 hour ceremony once a month, and I have seen them go on the most expansive journey. It's just it is literally everything to me. I absolutely love it.
I can see it. I can see it. For all of you who are only listening to the audio and not watching the video, I can just see the love and the light coming from Laura right now and how she speaks about it. And I can feel your energy about it. What made you begin this? Or what was like the trigger point for you to
Mhm.
step into this?
I think I have been through so much adversity in my life, over a decade of adversity. And I just got to the point where I was like, I'd had therapy and all sorts of stuff that never really did anything for me. And then I kind of just went on my own little journey and just fell down a rabbit hole of self-development and all of these different things and blocking out things that were detrimental or toxic and just really going just delving into my own self. And I had kind of been in groups of women before and never felt like I belonged. I always felt like a bit of an outsider. I never felt good enough. I never felt worthy. I felt silenced and all of these things. And I thought, and I'd been to a sister circle and I was like, this feels beautiful, but I feel like I would love to do something like this, but in my own way. And
Mm,
then I held a really intimate circle, like the first one. And like I said, it was like the most pivotal moment in my life because I was like, I was made to do this. And
mm,
from that moment, it was like, I never want any other woman to feel silenced, to feel like she hasn't got a space to be able to be herself. Like she can't make herself a priority, if she's got children or other responsibilities and she's not making the time for herself. I want this space to be that time for herself. And I want them to feel loved, seen, heard, safe, and I want them to feel supported. I want them not to feel like other women are their competition.
mm,
And I want to bring those women together to know that we are not each other's competition, but we're here to be of support and of service to each other. And it really is that space. And I now do it in person and online because there are so many women that couldn't access me in person that I knew needed that space as well. So that's why I do it in two ways now because it's like it's just the most beautiful place to be.
that's insane. What are some of the biggest maybe breakthroughs or feelings or things that have come up during the women's circles over the past couple of years that have really stuck with you? And especially for anyone listening that is interested or have
Yeah.
seen it and maybe feeling that anxiety of, oh, I don't know if I could go to one of those.
Oh gosh, yeah. Like that is such a big one. Like I don't know if I could do anything like that because I'm so scared of like being judged or it's like the
Mm,
least judgment free zone. Like no one will judge you. And I don't have my links online to come to them for that reason. I like to have conversations with the women
mm,
first before they can step into my space. So you will never find it being that kind of judgmental zone. But yeah, I guess one of like I remember the first ever one I held and somebody did come that I didn't know of and I remember her speaking so openly about her sister that had passed away and she was heartbroken and it happened through a bit of a tragic event and she just spent pretty much the entire time crying and she was like I've never been able to have this moment where I've been able to be vulnerable enough to let these emotions out. I just pretend to everyone else that I'm okay and she kept coming literally for like a year and, she was kind of destructive towards herself because of how she was feeling. And what she learned was that she didn't need to continue to please other people because that wasn't serving her. She learned so much about herself and she chose herself. She made decisions based on what felt good to her. And now she's literally just shining and she is more grateful for life and she does things that she know her sister would be proud of. And to see her in such a positive space now compared to that first time she came is just beautiful. So that's one example. There's another where a lady, she really wanted to conceive and she was struggling for like half a year or more. And what I was kind of trying to get across to her was like a lot of it is fear and a lot of it is probably underlying subconscious things that are going on for her. And through all of the meditations that we did, there are so many things that come up for them that they never thought was even there. And recently she was in the circle and people don't really talk about being pregnant when it's like they've only just found out. They kind of wait until like the 12-week mark. And she didn't even know she was going to share it. And all of a sudden she was just like, I really want to share something with everyone. And maybe I shouldn't, but I just feel called to. And she's like, I recently became pregnant. And I was just like, everyone was just in tears or just so full of joy. And the fact that she shared it in that space. And I also feel like that space helped her on her journey to feeling so comfortable within herself. It allowed it to happen. So they're just a couple of examples of like massive, massive breakthroughs.
Insane. Goosebumps as soon as you said that. That is so beautiful, and I'm sure for you to be able to witness that and facilitate that. For anyone listening that maybe is like, what is a women's circle? What does it entail? And they're liking the sound of it. How would you describe it?
It's just that beautiful safe space. It's a space for you to have time for yourself. We play so many different roles, especially as women in life. We have so many responsibilities and we're always on and we don't take that time for ourselves. And it's just dedicated time just for you. So my circles are generally about 2 hours, but it's just a space for you. It's a space where we can just share our feminine energy, get away from the doing and just allow ourselves to be, to just have stillness, to have that silence, to be able to go inwards rather than be analytical in our heads and
Mm,
just dropping into the body and how we actually feel on an emotional level and checking in with where we're at, what we actually need. We'll do meditation, we'll reflect. And it's just a space that, and sister circles have been happening for like ever, for like centuries, but
mm.
they used to happen in secret because women were never allowed to kind of have their own voice. And this is exactly what a circle is about allowing women to have a voice rather than feeling like other people, especially, men or patriarchy or whatever, like having the upper hand on women. Like this is your space to reclaim your power and be who you want to be, not who you think you should be.
That is so beautiful. And I think it's also a testament to everyone, every woman that's listening to this that is doing the work, the inner work. If and I feel called to say that maybe if things aren't shifting, or maybe if you are feeling a bit stagnant, or maybe the things that Laura and I have touched on, you're struggling with, whether it's the self reflection, whether it's your values, whether it's really getting in tune what's self love means to you, then this could be a modality to explore and to have space held for you and to be able to be in a safe space. And I've been to a couple of women's circles, and I think they are just powerful, a judgment free zone with so much power, with so much feminine energy. It's beautiful. And I think it's also a different type of modality to just be able to reflect, but also
Mhm.
know that there's a safe soundboard to reflect
Yeah.
back to you and hold space for you.
Yeah, and it's about knowing that you're not alone.
Mm,
We think we're going through something and we're
mm,
the only ones experiencing it, and you'll find so many people have either been through it or experiencing the same thing. And to be able to share that is beautiful because it's almost like having your hand held through it. And yeah, it is. It's really just that supportive space, but it's so powerful. And until you experience one, you won't know that. But I think it's about just trusting in yourself that, having an open mind to something new like that is what does help you grow. And yeah, it is just the most incredible thing to be part of. And I think as well, for anyone listening, for me, I never felt like I could be in a group of women because I
mm,
always felt either intimidated. I felt like I would be the odd one out. I didn't feel like I'd be accepted, and I just felt so scared and so small. But then when I put myself into that space, I realized that all of that was just conditioning
mm,
and beliefs that I've been made to believe when it wasn't true at all. There were spaces where women loved and supported each other. And when I found it, I was like, this is for me.
I love that. When I get to an end of a podcast, I have a range of questions and I choose at random one question depending on the guest. And I was just sitting here as you're talking, and I was like, what would I love to ask you? Um, okay. I think I want to ask you this one because I'd be very interested to see what your answer would be. If you found yourself stranded on a deserted island with only three items, what would they be and why?
Oh, I've been asked this before and I always find it so difficult. And this is where my analytical brain comes in and it just starts to overthink everything. Oh, this is really hard. I think, and I'm going off like what I've heard other people say that has been good, but I'm trying not to as well.
Mm,
But like almost like a sort of like a tool that would
mm,
help me kind of like forage things. So like whether that be
mm.
food or shelter I could use for that, but also like cooking or like chopping things, if I needed to do that. Like just something like a really versatile tool that could help me in that sense. Um I th For me, I don't know if this would count as one, but like a just like a book of paper and a pen. I and this and
I've had
people
that
like,
answer before. So you were the second person I've asked this, and the first lady, she said the exact same thing. She was like, "Can I just take a journal and a pen because I just want to write down my thoughts?" And I'm like, "Absolutely. I think I would do that."
yeah. And then someone was like, well, what if the book runs out, or like what if the pen runs out or whatever? But it's like, well, we're not thinking about that right
No,
now.
we're not thinking about that.
Um, Plus, if we can find like huge palm leaves that we can write on
Mm.
them, like, so that's cool. And then what else would I take? Hmm, this might sound really stupid, but like sunglasses.
Okay. Yep,
Because
I get that.
yeah, because like it's just I would hate to be squinting all the time. Like for me, I just want to see the beauty of the world and not have to. And plus, I get headaches so bad, but like just having that would just make me feel so. If I had those things, I think I'd be pretty content.
I love that answer. Absolutely. I absolutely love that. And I think, yeah, I like all of them. I agree with all of them. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. I feel that whoever listens to this, it's going to be one of those cases of divine timing because I feel that everything we've spoken about today, there's different pockets and different elements where I can feel that it's going to resonate with people to different degrees. And I've loved everything we've brought to this. Now, if someone is interested, and I love that you do them online as well, but overall, if someone's interested in your women's circle, working with you, getting in touch with you, what is the best way to do so?
Probably Instagram. I do have a
Yep.
website. All of the links are in my bio, that you can find there. So there's different ways, of working with me, but Instagram is the best place to get in touch with me. And when you was talking about reflecting and stuff like that as well, I do send out a Self-Love Sunday newsletter every week with so many journaling prompts. And I love writing them. But yeah, there's so many different ways that we can work together to bring you back home to yourself. But yeah, just
Mm.
find me on Instagram, send me a DM. I love chatting with everybody in there because, that's what life's about. It's about connecting with other people. So yeah, come and find me, come and have a chat and we can chat. Yeah, talk.
I love that you said that about life's about connecting with other people. I say that every time I do a solo podcast in episode, I'm always like, and if you just want to chat or have a suggestion, just slide into my DMs because I love it. And it's so funny the connections that you make from just inviting people to do that. But all Laura's details will be in the show notes below. And if you are interested, and I'm sure if you have any questions, just send her a DM to have this conversation. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for this conversation. It's nighttime now here for me. This is such a beautiful way for me to end my night as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been absolutely beautiful.